Very good morning. Thanks for appreciate and giving your comments or feedbacks on my previous videos. So let's begin with the new session for third-party risk management. In this topic, we will try to understand the concept of TPRM. That means the question and answers related to the third parties for for interview sites. Plus, what is third party? What is the beneficial of the third parties? Why third party is required? What is the step-by-step work process in the third party? What is the life cycle of the risk management? So this section is very beneficial for the students or the newcomers who preparing for the initial onboarding in the organizations. So let's begin, friends. What is third party? That is TPRM, third party risk management. So first one is, what is the third party? Very simply, taking services from the other party. Let's try to understand with an example here. There is a bank ABC having multiple vendors. These vendors provide services to bank having expertise in their own area. Okay. Let's suppose a vendor is responsible to print the credit and debit cards. Here the vendor who is printing the credit and debit card is considered as the third party. One more thing, bank always onboard the vendor after doing their background check, like is there any data fraud related with the vendor or not, right? Like what is the background, what is the history of vendor. So depending upon the nature of the service provided by the third party to the bank released the tender and they decided to onboard the vendor. So this is the general process does bank. So overall, the vendor who is providing the services to the bank is considered as the third party, or we can say that this is a different entity. So this is the bonding between the two parties, two entities, in which one party is providing the services to the bank, let's suppose. Second question is, what is risk management? So one more thing, third party risk management is actually a combination of two parts. Okay, first one is the third party and second one is the risk management. So we will try to understand both the pillars here. Overall, the risk associated with the third party will be studied in the third party risk management. This is a very huge topic in IT industry. What is risk management? Let's continuation to the previous examples. Vendor is printing the credit or debit cards for a bank. That means vendor is storing the bank's cards data in their own environment, right? So how the vendor is handling the data? Very clearly, they is a risk associated with the data because there might be possibility that vendor has no appropriate controls in their environment to prevent their bank's data, right? So bank has right to audit on the third party to check their data whether third party is taking care of the bank's data properly or not. Is there any chances to breach the data going outside from the vendor environment? So these are the certain checks. That means because data is storing or processing in the vendor's environment, so surely there is a risk associated with that data. So to study that risk associated with the data will be studied under the risk management. Since this risk is associated with the third party, so this is considered as a third party risk management. So overall, the conclude of this statement is that the risk associated with the data during the service providing by the third party to the bank will be considered as risk management. What is TPRM? As I previously said that TPRM is a combination of two pillars. First one is third party and the second one is the risk management. So third party risk management is the process of analyzing and minimizing risk associated with the outsourcing to the third party vendors or service providers. Yes. That means the risk team is responsible to analyze or minimize the risk associated with the vendor's data. As I previously said, this data is processing or storing or transmitting in the vendor's environment. So 100% there is a risk associated with the data in the third party in environment, because we are not sure that how the vendor is handling the data. Is there any chance of data breach? Data because depending upon the nature of data, for example, if the data's criticality is very very high, because there is a bank, right? So banks, I mean bank having their bank own data, right? Their I mean their customers data might be their employees data sharing in the third party environment. Uh, so depending upon the nature of data, there is a risk associated with that data. So to study this risk uh, of the datas of vendor, we can say, is studied in the TPRM. Yeah. So next question is why TPRM is required. General question is asked that uh, if we will not consider the TPRM in our hierarchy, then is there any impact? So the answer is TPRM is very very required. The reason behind this is that since bank is not managing their work by their own, right? So bank 100% will take services from the outsiders. Outsider means different vendors. And to run their and to run the bank's business, bank have to share their data in the to the third party, we can say. Or it might be possible that bank's data will be processed in the third party or in their environment. So TPRM is 100% required. So why this is required? That means TPRM becomes very important when vendors have access to their organization sensitive data. Depending upon the nature of the services providing by the vendors to the organization, might be possible vendors associated have the access to the bank's server, or they are getting the informations or data from the bank or any financial institute. Generally in most of the cases, vendor have the access to the bank's data, sensitive data. It's important to thoroughly vet and monitor them to ensure they are taking necessary steps to protect organization's information. But it's not only important to monitor the vendors if they having the access to their sensitive data. Third party risk management is important for many other reasons, like meeting regulatory requirements. That means vendors should be follow the regulatory requirements by I mean followed by their local countries, right? For example, in India, if the vendor is providing services in terms of insurance or some other related to the financial, then for insurance sector, IRDA is the regulatory bodies. And if any other in sections, like say for I mean let's suppose for the banking sections, Reserve Bank of India is the governing body. So by TPRM, vendors should meet the regulatory requirements. Second one is create better strategies and security. Means TPRM team is responsible to create the better strategies and security. It is managed by their organization over vendor. Next one is protect data from the cybersecurity risk, because if data is sharing to the third party by the bank or any financial institutes, right? So uh, might be some hackers may target the vendors, and finally vendors have the bank's data. So ultimately bank's data will be in a trouble if something goes wrong with the vendor. So third party is ensuring that that vendors should have the proper controls, appropriate controls over their environment. Last but not least, increased customer trust and confidence on organization. That means if everything goes well during audit, like we suggest vendors to implement some more strict controls over there. And finally, if the vendor's environment will go safe, so it automatically gets the increased customers, because data will be safe if vendors in environment having the strict controls, right? So it ultimately increase the customer's trust and confidence on the organization due to the safety of CIA, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So this session tells us the basic concept of the third party risk management, and let's end this session here. In the next session, try to get more important or more beneficial questions for you. And finally, we will take the interview questions later on. So friends, how you like such videos? Kindly subscribe and hit the bell icons. Thank you so much.